So we're moving on to Michael. Michael has Marfan syndrome, an autosomal dominant disorder, different pattern of inheritance. Michael is 34 years old. He's been living with Marfan syndrome all his life. Marfan syndrome, as I said, is an autosomal dominant disorder that involves connective tissue and varies in expression from mild symptoms to severe heart disease and skeletal deformities. Individuals with this disorder are typically tall and thin and have long limbs and fingers. That's usually the phenotype that points to that diagnosis, and testing will confirm it. Michael's a friend, and he values your expertise as a nurse. In this scenario, you are not Michael's nurse, but you are a nurse, and he trusts you and he talks to you, and he knows that you have some working knowledge of all things medical. Not everything is going to be immediately familiar to us, but at least we have some basic knowledge. So he's talking to you. He tells you that he and his wife would like another child. Their 2-year-old son was conceived unexpectedly. It was an unintended pregnancy, and he fortunately has no features of Marfan syndrome. Michael has no family history of Marfan's and was told by geneticists that his case was caused by a de novo mutation. De novo is a phrase that says this is the first time it's ever happened, it's new. Michael confides that he would love another baby, but that he is terrified of passing on his gene. He has already had 2 orthopedic surgeries and 1 cardiac procedure. This was scary and painful for him. He would like to avoid seeing this in a child of his. And also because of variable expression, Michael might be aware that his child might have a more severe case of Marfan's, maybe a lethal cardiac defect. His team is telling him that he may require more intervention in the future. He's considering all of his options, including pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, adoption, use of donor sperm, and remaining a one-child family. So, which statement reflects an understanding of a germline mutation as opposed to a somatic one? Those are the 2 types they come in. Option number 1, a germline mutation affects all of the cells in the body and can be passed on to offspring. Option number 2, a germline mutation only involves the X chromosome. Option number 3, a germline mutation only affects some cells and is acquired later in life. Option number 4, a germline mutation is caused by infectious illness. Correct option is 1. A germline mutation occurs, sperm meets egg, you have that original zygote, and there is a change in the way the base pairs are organized on 1 gene, or sometimes more. But in this case, it was 1 gene, the FBN1 gene. It will impact every cell in the body. The entire script for every cell has been changed. It will affect Michael's haploid cells, his gametes, his sperm. Germline mutations can happen on any chromosome, and they are not limited to X chromosomes. Any gene can change. Anywhere in that sequence of guanine, adenine, thymine, and cytosine, we can see a rearrangement of material. Sometimes it just affects some of the base pairs, and now the protein for 1 gene has been changed. Sometimes entire chunks of chromosomes are translocated. There are all different types of mutations, not limited to X chromosomes. It is not caused by infection. The word germ might confuse you there. It is change in the sequence of base pairs that leads to a difference in the protein that is produced by that gene. In this case, the FBN1 gene that codes for connective tissue, a protein in the connective tissue, was affected. 25% of individuals with Marfan's disorder will acquire the syndrome as a de novo mutation, meaning their parents didn't have the disease. They are the first ones ever in their family to get it. 75% of them have 1 affected parent. Which statement reflects the best understanding of autosomal dominant inheritance? When a parent is heterozygous for the trait and the other parent does not have the gene variant. Now, I know we thought Punnett squares, some of you like them, thought they were fun. Some of you thought they were tedious and said, why do I need to know this? Well, let's work it out. So Michael has a dominant Marfan's gene on the FBN1 gene. He has a recessive copy. His wife does not have Marfan syndrome. She's got 2 copies of that recessive allele. Okay? So if you work it out, I'll give you a minute. I'm going to clear the screen and let you work out your Punnett square. Then I'll read the choices. Okay, if you're not done, pause the video and keep working. Option number 1, all offspring will have the disorder since it is dominant. Option number 2, there is a 25% chance of having a child with the disorder, a 50% chance of having a child who is a carrier, meaning they are heterozygous, and a 25% chance of having a child who is unaffected in any way by Marfan syndrome. Option number 3, there is a 50% chance that any natural conception will result in a child who has the disorder. Option number 4, if a couple already has a child with an autosomal dominant disorder, their second child will be fine because only 50% of their children will have the disease. So tick tock, think carefully, pause the video if you need to look at those options again. I'm moving on. Okay, correct option was number 3. Half of Michael's gametes will contain the gene responsible for Marfan syndrome. That gene is dominant, or that allele, that variation of the gene is dominant. So when it is present, its traits will always be expressed. If it is not present, the individual is unaffected. It will have 2 recessive copies of that allele. There are no carriers for Marfan syndrome because the trait's always expressed. All individuals who have the gene will have the disease in some shape or form. Maybe mild, maybe more severe, but they will all have Marfan syndrome. The presence or absence of disease in an older sibling has no bearing on an individual's risk for having it. Every time sperm meets egg, you're tossing the coin all over again. The body doesn't know what the sibling was, just 50-50 shot at the Marfan's gene being present in that germ cell, that sperm or ovum. Okay, so we are done with Michael's case. We will probably revisit him at some point in the future. I'm going to shut this video down and move on to Brianna, whose case is fairly interesting.